Thank you, Bob. Bob has been a tireless advocate for the creation of a real functioning North America. I must say, maybe the time is actually getting nearer. We shall see. I hope so. But we are up against tremendous time constraints. We're almost 10 over now for lunch. We have max only 5 minutes before our lunch gets destroyed. So I'm only going to take one question. Does anyone want to does anyone have one question? Or what we could do is you could ask questions of each other for 4.5 minutes. Do you want to do that? Do we have a question there? In the back, yeah. Oh, wait, who are you? Mike.
Oh, okay, good. I have a question about transportation infrastructure in North America, particularly mostly Canada and the United States. We're integrated with NORAD for military defense. I think our driver license plate system, Canada, US, pretty integrated, things like that. Transportation infrastructure within the US, federally funded, done by the states. Federal government gives money to the states. Is there a mechanism that we could somehow incorporate Canadian provinces in these programs? Is there a legal financial mechanism and that way incorporate them into existing programs or build a program on top of some of our federal highways to better integrate, or ports and other infrastructure potentially?
Thank you. I think it's on.
It is on.
Well, I'm not sure. But yeah, is it on?
Shortly after NAFTA came into place, a NAFTA subcommittee was established among the government representatives of the US, Canada, and Mexico to develop common standards on the size, weight, and regulations regarding trucks going among all three countries. After 4 years' time, the GAO did a report after the three governments walked away from the table and said, and all three governments said this is impossible, even though they were within 6 inches of the truck size of reaching agreement. Now, why is that the case? Well, first of all, it turns out that there are 51 sets of regulations in the United States. There are 15 sets of regulations in Canada. And there are basically one in Mexico. And the federal structures of the three countries and the inability of leadership in the three countries made it impossible for them to move forward. The provinces actually in Canada are actually stronger than our states in many different ways, and much more autonomous, and much more difficult to reach any agreements. And that is one of the reasons why you need to start with a large idea, and you need to start with some commitment. In a practical way, it seems that these things should be so simple. I've looked at least 25 discrete cases which all of us would look at and say, we should be able to reach agreement so easily. And yet we almost never do. And that's what brought me back to my book, which is, and back to the idea that you have to start with the big idea. And you need some leadership. You need people who are working on the border areas because they understand the necessity of transit and commerce. You need people who have a larger picture of America right now. I mean, we are looking very narrowly in the world. The kind of imagination we brought in reconstructing the international system after the Second World War, the kind of courage of going with the Marshall Plan and saying to the European countries, we're not going to use our leverage on you individually. We're going to set one condition for Europe. We're going to give you all this money if you agree on one unified plan. Now, show me that leadership in America today that's prepared to do that. We don't have it. So we have to start somewhere. I think you have a very practical idea. It makes a lot of sense. My studying of it says it's not going to go anywhere. It hasn't gone anywhere.
Barbara, do you want to make a final comment?
Just a comment. I think this is a very interesting discussion, and whenever I hear Bob Pastor talk about the North American community, I get excited. I'm a proponent of the North American community. I have 3 children that are Mexican, Canadian, and American, so I'm working on it. And it does make a lot of sense. But I would say that whenever I write about NAFTA and deepening NAFTA and talk about this and talk about things like common infrastructure, I get some very nasty comments into my email. Some of them which include, you know, threats. And I'm sure that you get much worse. And I've seen stuff about you on YouTube's, you know, offering to do things to you because you're a proponent of this North America superhighway, and the common external tariff is not going to get you a lot of friends. Although in the business community, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, Canada, US, and Mexico make more sense as a customs union than other customs unions that exist. In terms of tackling the infrastructure issue, this would make a lot of sense. I imagine our friends at the Inter-American Development Bank think this would make a lot of sense. Politically, it seems much more difficult to sell, and I think it's because NAFTA has gained a lot of momentum. There have been successful results in NAFTA. And so perhaps going deeper is much scarier to people than having trade agreements that seem a little bit more superficial, even though the behind-the-border regulatory changes that would need to be made in some of the proposals in the TPP are quite far-reaching. Perhaps they're not as well understood, and the trading partners are further away. So I haven't received any death threats from my work on the TPP yet. Perhaps if I keep you longer from your lunch, that will change. So I'm willing to do that. But you know, I think what you say makes a lot of sense. I often wonder why policymakers haven't paid more attention to you, and I think that might be an interesting topic of study for some of the PhD students in the room. Why do these things that make so much more sense, that can be, you know, quantified in terms of the economic gains that would be gotten from further integration in North America?
Thank you. I think the answer is the policymakers often don't have to be elected, and there are various constituencies that are conflicting out there. But in any case, I want to thank both our wonderful speakers for their excellent presentations. And I would like to invite all of you to go to the Miami room, which I think is next door. Iris, is it that way? Yeah, okay, that way. So thank you. We will continue with our luncheon with Moisés Naím as our featured speaker.